Now, joining us live now is the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Chris Heaton-Harris. Chris, thanks ever so much for joining us. We've been talking about the Windsor Framework and, it was sort of billed as a great triumph for Brexit and getting Brexit done. But there's been a number of people who've sort of questioned whether or not it's all it's cracked up to be. You used to be chairman of the ERG as well.
European Research Group.
Yeah, Stephen Barrett said on GBNews yesterday, it's a document with no legal effect, it's a wish list of vague commitments, and it envisages the UK government maintaining alliance with EU laws. So what do you say to people who are saying that this deal isn't all it's cracked up to be?
Well, to that specific question, I'd say, well, that's wrong. I mean, there are treaty changes that the European Union have to pass to get the Stormont lock put into law and to do the VAT changes. There's a whole host of EU law that's disapplied that needs to be done on the European side. The new Green Lane needs a treaty change and backing on the European side as well. So I can actually prove that it has quite a strong legal effect that's different. But for people who say it's not getting Brexit done, I guess I say to them, well, what do you think Brexit was? We've left the European Union. This deal now allows for food produced in the United Kingdom to travel freely around the United Kingdom for consumption. It eliminates what was a customs border in the Irish Sea. It means there is a whole host less EU law. There is still 3%, or probably less than 3% of EU law that applies to Northern Ireland, but it's 3% of law that actually is the minimum required by the businesses there that they have asked for, that people that work in Northern Ireland have asked for to maintain their link into the single market without a north-south border on the island of Ireland. So I would say, I'm not sure what getting Brexit done might look like to some people. It wasn't ever meant to be cutting our nose to spite our face. It was never meant to leave us with bad relations with the European Union. But this is a deal that goes way, way further in sorting out the Northern Ireland Protocol than any other previous suggestions, and I believe will bring prosperity to Northern Ireland, which is good for the Union.
Now, you were a strong supporter of Boris Johnson when he was Prime Minister, Chris. Yesterday, it's on the front page of the Daily Express today, Boris Rishi's deal will not take back control. So what would you say to Boris Johnson? Is he completely wrong about this too?
So, but as you know, I love Boris with a passion. I think he's one of the greatest politicians we have in our party, and he's got a great part to play in this. I had a conversation with him yesterday as well. And the beautiful thing about British politics is we don't always have to agree. And on this, I'm afraid I don't think Boris has got it completely right. He was saying that we wouldn't be able to diverge. Actually, we absolutely will be able to diverge in our standards and in how we do things as we move forward. But there is a lot in the Westminster Framework. I don't think people have quite come to terms with how all-encompassing this is, because it does sort out, hopefully forever, the issues that we have in the Irish Sea, which have meant that huge amounts of UK GB-made goods have been missing from shelves in Northern Ireland. But that's just a practical effect. But there's been a problem with VAT. Couldn't apply VAT changes or duty changes in Northern Ireland. This deal sorts that out. We couldn't. A whole host of things we couldn't do are sorted by this deal. But being upfront with everybody, there is still 3% of EU law, but that's the bit of EU law that makes actually Northern Ireland gives it a special relationship with its partner to the south. Sorry, Esther, I can't hear you.
Oh, can't you? OK. I'll shout. People have said they've accepted this is a lot better, much better than it was before. But I guess what they're looking at here is the DUP. Have you got support of them? Do they think it's good enough?
Yeah, and that's a really fair question. And that's why I actually, like you, Esther, and like you, Philip, kind of wear the scars of what's gone on before, where we think something has been sold to us which turned out not to be what it is. And so we've now published everything, the legal text, everything's out there, allowing people to have the time and the space to look at it properly, because it's actually genuinely important to the people of Northern Ireland that they have a functioning executive up and running. The Northern Ireland Protocol was the main issue behind the DUP not rejoining the executive there. And they need to be comfortable with themselves that this does the job. Now, I would like to think that the Stormont break that's contained within this New Deal, which is a really meaty tool for democracy, and Stormont gives even more added emphasis, because it means essentially in that 3% of law that still applies to Northern Ireland, EU law that still applies to Northern Ireland, if that ever changes from the EU side, Stormont has a break on that.
We'll have to
I'd like
see
to think
whether
there's something in this, but they do need the time and space.
Agree with that, Chris. But finally, if we've time, this Sue Gray appointment, your views on that? Keir Starmer wanting to appoint Sue Gray, one of the top civil servants?
Yeah, I'm here to be diplomatic and helpful. I'm surprised by the appointment, I have to say. I've worked with Sue Gray. She's been a very good civil servant in my dealings with her. But as you mentioned, I was Boris's chief whip, still a good friend of his. And I think this raises a whole host of questions that are for other people to ask.